Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome. This is FreeThought Hour, following global atheist news, which some of you may have seen in a few moments ago. Now, we have a guest. This is the usual format of the show, and I'm very pleased to have a fantastic guest tonight. She sort of exploded on the scene. She has her own channel, and she's a very eloquent lady who can express herself. I don't know, it's amazing the way she does it. But here she is, Nuria Khan.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction.
Well, it's entirely deserved. But tell me, how the devil are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Well, as you know, because we had this chat before a couple of times, I've been struggling with COVID. But I can report it's on the last legs.
Yes.
I've more or less got it beat, because today I had to go to London to attend a meeting because, as you know, I'm the president of Atheism UK. And one of the things that I get invited to is the Secular Education Forum. And it was a very good meeting. I was very pleased to be there and be able to contribute to a wonderful offshoot of the National Secular Society, which is campaigning for all sorts of improvements, because, you know, we have this anachronistic legal situation in the UK. I blame Henry VIII because he instigated it. He took over the job of Pope because he wanted to divorce some women.
Yeah, exactly.
Since then, we've had an established church, and it's got its tendrils into our schools. And so we have anachronistic laws now, like schools must, this is from the 1944 Education Act, hold an assembly, a daily assembly of a religious nature, and unless they are some other denomination, then it must be Christian, which is, you know, completely out of order in a country which is tested recently as being 51% non-believers. Anyway, I could rant on about this, but the point is that we're doing good work with the Secular Education Forum.
Oh, that's amazing.
We will be campaigning for all sorts of things like that. Oh, I'm being invaded. Who's this coming into my studio? Can you be very, very quiet? All right. Right, so anyway, this is not meant to be about me. It's about you. So you've had a very interesting story. People love to hear about your journey, because you started out in a Muslim community. I want to hear how that began. Was it just a matter of an accident of birth, as we might say? Or did you really get involved? I mean, have you read the Quran? And then I want to hear how you got out of it, because that's no mean feat. It's an achievement to escape from any religion, but particularly from Islam. So I'm going to full screen you and ask you to tell us your story.
Sure. Thank you so much, John. So yeah, as you said, I basically was born into the Islamic faith, as one usually is born into their religion. I'm from a British Pakistani background, and I grew up here in the UK into a Muslim Sunni family. And I was here, and I was schooled here till I was 9 years old before we moved to the Middle East. And during that time, it's actually really interesting that you brought up the school curriculum, because I remember even when I was in primary school here, like every morning we'd have assembly, and we'd recite like those kind of like the Christian songs, or like the Christmas, even like the Lord's Prayer, essentially. Yeah. And some of them were so beautiful. Like it was, I still remember them today. Like I listen to them at Christmas time, because they're honestly so good. But yeah, it was very much reinforced every single morning at assembly. And they would switch it up a bit. Like they'd have a guitar going, and we'd ramp it up. But it was,
music is fantastic, isn't it? It doesn't belong to religions, though.
Precisely, exactly. Even now, I'm no longer Muslim, but I still listen to music that is meant to be inherently Islamically spiritual. But I just listen to it
Mm,
for the actual music,
mm,
and even the beauty of the lyrics, but not attributing it to the God as I used to know and love once upon a time. But yeah, so I did go to school here, and yeah, we had the Lord's Prayer that we sang every morning, and we'd have the what's it called, the play that gets put on every year for reenacting,
nativity.
like, yeah, the nativity. Every single year we try and get like a better and
Yes.
better part in that.
Yes.
But the Yeah.
I think I was a shepherd.
Well, yeah, I think we've all been a shepherd.
Yeah.
Becoming one of the
I wanted to
three
be a
wise
camel.
men was a big upgrade.
Yes. I wanted to be a camel. I fancied the front end of a camel.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. So we had all of this kind of going on in the background. So I was like low key really enjoying all of these elements of going to school in England, and I was very young, so I never thought this was it was wrong for me to engage in as a
Oh,
Muslim, because I did really enjoy it. But
yes.
on the flip side, after school, every single day, I'd also be attending the mosque and going to Quran classes, and that's because my family, we lived as an extended family unit, and my grandparents are a lot more conservative. So my
Every
grand
day.
every day after school, yeah, I'd come home, I'd have like an hour to watch BBC and like all of the
Mm.
like Art Attack and all of these shows that I really enjoyed as a child, and then
Good. Good,
5 o'clock
Peter.
would be cut off for mosque.
Yes. Wow. Yes. That's some heavyweight indoctrination going on.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, because I am going to this mosque and like reciting the Quran, and you're sitting as a kind of group of girls trying to learn and memorize the Quran, it's all being done in Arabic. But they did actually in
Sweet.
England provide us with like a little book of translations if you wanted
Right.
one. And I
Mm.
was I was like very curious even from back then, and I really wanted to take an interest in what I'm actually saying and
Mm.
learning. So I did carry that around, but I was really young, and it was like a tiny book, and the English translation of it was very kind of like almost Shakespearean in the language.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
a 6, 7 year old like has no understanding of what that means, what parts are allegorical, what's
Mm.
happening here. So
Just learning to
that
read.
yeah, exactly. So I spent most
Mm.
of my time kind of memorizing the Arabic, and
Mm.
I would take part in these like recital competitions where, because singing and stuff isn't permitted in Islam, but being able to recite the Quran is considered
Oh,
very like it's considered a really good thing, and like a lot of families
yes.
like to show off about that and have you perform in front of people and things.
Yes.
So I was really trying to kind of get good at my recitation, and obviously because my grandfather was basically the imam of this local mosque, it really kind of
Mm.
enhanced our relationship as well, because he saw the interest level that I was taking. And then at a very young age, I think I was 9 years old, and because of the emphasis of these Quran classes and and then again, like what I was seeing at school, I was like, okay, let me emphasize my Muslim identity, and what do I need to do in order to do that? Well, God tells me I should be wearing the hijab after a certain age.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
decided to put on the hijab quite early at like
Good for
nine
you.
years old.
Good.
And
Well, that's
yeah,
interesting. Can I interrupt here and
sure, sure,
tell a
sure.
little anecdote? Because one of my daughters, we've got them trying to be quiet behind here, but one of them, uh, I think before she moved up to secondary, she had a
Mhm.
friend who was from a Muslim family, and she met her recently. They've both gone to different schools, but they bumped into each other, and she's wearing the hijab, and according to my daughter, she wanted to do it. Now I'm thinking, how much of that is an understood want? How much of it is wishing to please the parents? How much of it is even possibly gaslighting,
Yeah.
where they've been more or less psychologically forced into having to wear it? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, most of the cases I've come across where girls at an age, below, let's say, being actually well into adulthood to understand what it is you're
Yes.
doing, they have there is always some degree of, if not even pressure, which we can assume in most cases there is pressure, but if not even pressure, there is some level of family unspoken, yet there's an expectation just reinforced by the climate and the culture of the family unit at home. For example,
and the
in my case,
being shown by the adult women around you.
Yeah. So I'm a bit of an anomaly in that sense, because my family, they, like, all the women in my family don't necessarily cover. They would only cover, for example, when they'd hear the call to prayer, or when you have to actually pray and things like that. So this is actually the case for a lot of like, I'd say, moderate Sunni Pakistani families who are quite liberal. Leaning towards the more liberal side anyway, especially the ones based here. You're either very religious in the sense that you wear the hijab all the time, or you're one of those who kind of just leaves the cloth, like a shawl here, and then you'll put it on when you need to. But like you did say, that there's obviously always a level of pressure. I unconsciously did it to please and get closer to my grandfather, but also because of the indoctrination, whether it was happening at home or through the mosque, I felt this was almost obligatory on me and expected, because I did genuinely want to be on the right path. And I assumed that you've got to follow the word of God if you want to get to heaven in the end. And I really wanted to. So it was bizarre for me that I actually put it on, and I didn't get the applause that I thought I would get, and the mashallahs. In fact, I got like more concern that, you're really young. Are you sure you want to make this massive life choice? Yeah, because once you put it on, I think the stigma attached to this is a huge thing as well, I think, because I've got other members of my extended family who do wear hijab, and they chose to do it also at quite a young age, because like you said, there was a huge level of expectation within the family, and it was hard to say no to that, and you kind of feel guilty, and then you put it on. And there's a huge taboo, I think, around girls who decide to wear it and then take it off in terms of the Muslim community.
Right.
So
because you've gone from being pure to being corrupted, I suppose.
Pretty much. And never have if you've never been wearing it before, that kind of seems, you've kind of maintained a normal trajectory. Whereas if you go from being pious to supposedly being outwardly unpious, that is exactly like you've taken a turn for the worst.
Yes, it's no longer compliant. You're a rebel.
Exactly.
So Sunni Muslims, now it seems to me that they're much more, how should I say it, arranged than the Shia variety. I mean, I'm no expert on this, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that the Shia variety, or the Ahmadis and some of the other sects, are very much more keen to go into Shia law and to be more fundamentalist, whereas the Sunnis can be a range from very moderate, very liberal. It's a bit like the Christian, even the Anglican Church, where you have high church, which is practically Roman Catholic, or you have low church, where you just go along for the tea and cakes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I don't know much about the Shia sect at all, because I was always like kept very far away from it. I've just had some friends, but when I did interact with them, we were in Saudi Arabia, where Shias aren't very welcome anyway. So they would be a lot more closed off about exactly what it is that they do believe in. But yeah, even within Sunni Islam, like you said, you can go from being absolutely liberal, kind of maybe having a drink and a gamble once in a while and still praying to. But again, I think these are all down to like individual personalities and the households you've been raised in. But yeah, Sunni Islam is like obviously one of the biggest sects of Islam, which has within it as well, there's just so many different factions, and then there's factions within factions, and then there's the individual versions of their Sunni Islam. So,
well, one of the characteristics of religions, it seems to me, is people don't really like to fit into somebody else's doctrine. They have their own idea of God. They have this personal experience, and so really they all want their own religion, because their God agrees with them and with nobody else.
Yeah, exactly.
So I interrupted you. You were in the Middle East.
Oh, yeah. So
Dubai.
I think I was, no, I was actually still in the UK, but I'm just about to get to the Middle East because, yeah, so I did start wearing hijab because I wanted to obviously project my identity and kind of, be a good Muslim girl from a young age. I aspired to make it to heaven. And I was kind of a bit mortified that my family weren't on the same page, and I was kind of weirded out that they weren't covering up or they didn't think it was obligatory when I at least knew that at that point that this is it's called fard or farz in Arabic, or Urdu, but it's obligatory on you. So I was like at that point a tiny kind of level of, I wouldn't call it cognitive dissonance, but I mean, it shook me a little bit from a young age because I had this kind of contradictory atmosphere where I was trying to be on the right path and do what I'm
And they
supposed,
weren't. Yes,
and
weren't you
they
worried?
weren't. And what,
Weren't
yeah. And I was like, don't you
you not
guys
going
want,
to heaven?
yeah. Like, how are you okay with just defying God,
Yes.
and being okay with it? So I didn't
Mm,
get it. But, and so I wore hijab, and
mm,
in classes like religious education RE at the time, I did really like represent Islam and the
yes.
version that I knew it was at the time. So I would demonstrate how to pray, and I would kind of tell people the nicer elements of Islam, the
Mhm.
fact that we say, killing all of humankind is killing
Yes.
one person is akin to killing all of humankind. I held on to all of these little bits
The
that I was fed
religion of
that was so,
peace.
yes, exactly.
Mm,
And I, looking back now, I do see how in the Quran classes they would just feed you these nice rosy bits. We were told
yes,
how
yes,
like amazing and loving and caring and
yes.
forgiving and gentle,
Oh, it's,
gentle, a word was
it's
used a lot
the
for the
same.
prophet.
It's the same, isn't it? In any religion, the clergy cherry pick.
Yeah.
They keep hidden the nasty bits. I mean, they don't, in Christianity, they don't tell you all the stuff about women being stoned to death or forced to sleep with their, I don't know, brothers or whatever,
Mhm.
because they don't think that's a good advert, I suppose.
Yeah, and they're right.
Yes, they are. They're not wrong.
They're not
Yes.
wrong, yeah. So yeah, and then eventually, so I was 9 and I was wearing hijab, but then we got the chance to move to Saudi Arabia.
Hmm.
And obviously, we didn't really know about it at the time, but because we knew that we'd be moving and living a very much expat life there, so
Yes.
you're living in Saudi Arabia, but you're not living exactly as the Saudis would be living. You're kind of given
Yes.
some,
Brit
you're cut a bit of
enclave.
slack.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes.
exactly. So
Mm.
you're basically it's almost like you could be living in, well, our actual place of living was modeled off Spain, so it was beautiful in
Yes,
the way
yes,
they had set
yes,
it up, and it was just a whole range of people from across the world whose
yes,
parents had come to Saudi Arabia to work. So you can imagine
yes,
the level of like how cosmopolitan it was in nature, and
yes.
how your
Mm.
neighbors could be of all faiths and from all over the world. So that was a huge like just it took a whole another level of acclimatizing, because you are in Saudi
Yes,
Arabia,
yes,
which is an
yes. A
Islamic
shift of
country.
culture.
Very much so. Whereas
Mm.
even growing up in the UK, you can have like these suburban elements where you just grow up with people from the exact similar culture or who have the same beliefs. And, like I could assume safely that 60% of my road were going to the same mosque and hearing the
Yes,
same things as I was. But
yes,
so going to an extremely, extremely international school and living amongst such
yes,
an international group of people, including like
yes,
US military personnel, and they were based there. So you can
yes.
imagine the kind of interactions,
Mm.
and that kind of made me like open my eyes a bit to just other ideas and the willingness.
Possibilities.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And also the willingness to tolerate other beliefs and the
Mm.
pluralistic nature of society, really. Like I
Mm.
saw it in its full kind of manifestation, whether it was at school or in the compound.
Mm. Mm.
And so I started like obviously learning about these other religions and like making friends from all over the world. And you just as a natural
Yes,
consequence of that become more liberal
yes,
in your
yes,
thinking. And I didn't also feel the need to wear the hijab any longer, because I got really, really heavily involved in sports, and that
yes.
became like a heavy focal point of my life.
Mm.
And also the fact that Saudi Arabia was so Islamic anyway, so I'd have to wear an abaya to and fro school even, and
Mm.
um, also like any point that you're outside, whether you're going to a mall, whether you're going to meet up with friends, you're going to a restaurant, even within a restaurant, you're wearing an abaya. But
Well,
if you go with your,
can you For the benefit of my audience, can you
Sure.
explain an abaya? What's that? It's not a burqa, is it? It's not a
It
hijab, is it?
it's not a burqa and it's not hijab. It's not got a face covering at all.
No.
Because I was still a teenager, I think up until, you're about 16, 17 in Saudi Arabia, you
Yes.
can get away with just wearing it's almost like a loose coat, and it's
Uh-huh.
just like a black covering. So whatever you're wearing underneath is just completely covered by this
Right.
black almost like cloak thing that you just button up from top to bottom. But
Yes.
you still also have to have the hijab ready, so it would always be like
Right.
lurking on our shoulders.
A
And if
hoodie.
you saw the
Hoodie.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, the Islamic equivalent of a zip up hoodie, yeah. And
Yes.
then in Saudi Arabia, we also did have the Mudawwa, which is the Islamic police, who were quite they were quite prolific at that time. Now they've kind of really cut back on the authority that they have had in Saudi Arabia recently. But when I was there, they were still kind of a force to be reckoned with. They were considered higher than the average police. So they could actually, if they were to ever rock up or we would see them from a distance, we'd quickly cover our
Yeah.
heads
Yeah.
as well. But up until you're still pretty much a teenager who looks young enough, you can get away with just the abaya. But after a certain age, you definitely have to cover your head
Yeah.
as well.
Well, I'm going to put some comments up in a minute so that.
Sure.
But it seems to me that the police are like the bogeymen.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. And I
You've got
mean,
to
they
be
would
afraid
even
of.
come and like tell Western women to cover up, and sometimes they would actually have the guts and the audacity to say, well, we don't believe in this, so why should we cover our heads? But I mean, the
Mm.
second or third time that they were told to cover, they would have to.
Here's the thing, because when you were growing up, there were other children around. Some of them were men and males, boys.
Yeah.
Didn't you wonder why they don't have to wear specific types of clothing?
Um, yeah, to be honest, that's a really, really good point. And it's always there in the back of your mind, like really, really like deep in your unconscious somewhere. But as a Muslim, just by way of how divine you consider these commands and God's ideas of what should happen for male and females, it was never a thought you would question. Even if it came to your mind, you'd kind of push it to
Yeah,
the side and just think, oh, this is just and you do kind of internalize a lot as a Muslim, so you do think that men and women have different roles.
yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
they've got different, like, yeah, roles in society, really, and
Yes.
also outwardly in
Expectations.
expectations.
That's
Exactly.
right. Yes, yes. Well, so here's an interesting person, ex-Muslim. This is somebody who left Islam
Yeah.
and was depressed and
Yeah.
rejoined Islam, and it saved him
Oh,
from suicide. So I'm very
wow.
sorry to hear that you were suicidal,
Yeah,
XX.
and I'm really glad that it saved you from doing anything that you.
Yeah, yeah. We don't want people to become suicidal, but
Definitely not. And keep Islam if it keeps you here.
yeah, that is a worrying thing actually, because there's so much psychological harm caused by
Yeah.
religions
Yeah.
that there's actually a condition now. It's akin to PTSD.
Yeah. I'm not
Um,
surprised at all. And I've actually experienced PTSD, or like being diagnosed with PTSD, and I can say, like, retrospectively speaking, I'm sure religion is enough to diagnose that and have that impact for
well,
sure.
there's an organization, Recovering from Religion Foundation,
Hmm.
that offers counseling for people who have had these psychological difficulties following their indoctrination. And so that's led by Dr. Darrell Ray, who is an excellent fellow. He was a former guest on my show.
Oh, nice.
So maybe we'll put the link to his organization, which is worldwide now,
Oh,
for
lovely.
anybody watching this who is suffering from some sort of condition that's caused by their religious experience.
Yeah. And also, obviously, the person who just commented has found Islam again, and if that's what you need to kind of keep you safe and secure and happy and give you hope for life, then we're not here to kind of take or pull anyone or kind of pull the rug from under your feet and tell you how you know, you shouldn't have Islam in your life, because it's very much human nature to want to associate with something bigger than themselves and have like some sort of spiritual connection, if you will, for lack of a better word, but some kind of collective binding that gives you hope for life and brings you meaning and purpose and comfort. And if Islam happens to do that, then I mean that's
fine for them.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah.
We don't want to deprive anybody of their belief system. That's not our business. But we mentioned music, and it seems to me, you said that music and dancing and stuff are not really allowed in Islam. And it seems to me that's a bit of a missed trick, you know, because many other religions make use of music and dancing as a way to engage people. And as you were just saying, we're a social animal. You know, we need connection. We need a tribe to belong to help to give us purpose. But what do you think? How is it that it seems to me that Islam, instead of offering a combination of carrot and stick, you know, like Christianity does. Christianity says, you know, you can come along to our events. They will be entertaining. You know, we will have some of the most recent musical instruments available. And on the other hand, you know, if you don't fit in, we've got these threats, because you will go to hell, and you won't like that. So it's a carrot and a stick. But it seems to me that Islam is mostly stick.
Yeah, no, definitely. So Islam is kind of varied within itself, right? Just based on the way that people interpret it differently. So some people, again, it's very different across the board. But then, I mean, the hardcore like literalists and the most extreme forms of interpretation of Islam don't allow for, which again is such a disservice to humanity, because you're not really being a patron of the arts and, you know, culture and music and things like that really spur the human spirit and things like that, which I think are crucial, like you said, to just us as a species and the way we kind of deal with life. But Sufi Islam, for example, the more mystical, esoteric version of Islam, they make a use of a lot more kind of like the drum, the meditative technique, the kind of getting people into a trance. It's called zikr or dhikr in Arabic. And it's the constant like recitation of it's still the Quran and prayers, but like there is the twirling happening at the same time, and various like different sects. I was watching a documentary, and there's like these Islamic sects in Africa, and they've kind of meshed their own African culture with Islam, and so they carry out Islamic practices with a lot of their own tribal music going on in the background, and they've kind of incorporated scripture into it.
Yes. Well, there is a lot of that goes on when a new religion comes to a country. It's easier to integrate with the belief system that's already there,
precisely,
rather than say to the population, "That's all rubbish. You've got to throw that away and take on this." Because this is what happened. What happened in the Northern Hemisphere when the Christians got hold of the Roman Empire, and what they did was they took over Saturnalia, the winter festival, turned it into Christmas.
And exactly.
That's far easier than, you know, converting people from making them look stupid. that sort of point of view is less persuasive.
It's like it's easier as well, isn't it? Obviously, if you'll say we'll just take your thing, but we'll change the names.
Yes, that's right. Modify it a little bit. So you're not allowed to do the songs, but you can eat the turkey. So to the audience, I've put a notice, a ticker along here saying, please put a Q. If you want to address either of us, Nuria or me, I think Nuria's the important one today. Oh, she's that side. then please put a Q at the front of your question, because otherwise I can't tell it from all the other comments that are coming in. So
that is a good strategy. I might employ that as well, John, if you don't mind.
No, it's not patented.
Not yet, anyway.
You can't. There's no way you can do that. So in Kazakhstan, this is one of my fairly regular viewers. I think he was on last week. and he was asking then about how you sow the seeds of doubt in people's minds. And so he's saying that they're sort of technically Muslim, but nobody's very emphatic about it.
Yeah, I've
And,
actually heard that about Kazakhstan. Yeah.
and he's right. The situation is totally similar in the UK, although it's changing now. But throughout the last century, our established church, because we're that oddity amongst the Western nations, we don't have a secular constitution. In fact, we don't really have a written constitution at all.
Yeah, exactly.
That's another story.
Yeah.
But the established church, the Church of England, was really just a tea and cakes experience. Nobody needed to believe very much, and not even the clergy needed to believe very much, very fervently. But the latest Archbishop, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, is very much more evangelical than his predecessors. I think he's noticed that during the 20th century, the attendance at church dwindled away to almost nothing. And so he's fighting a rearguard action. He's trying to build up the congregations now. And so we're facing a much more thrusting local church.
Yeah, and I'd say even from the perspective of the Muslim community, they still very much care about their religion for the most part. They're happy to coexist, but they would definitely they are for and pro kind of portraying and sticking to their own values and belief system.
Yes. So Bandi Gami, nice name, says, what is the difference between the Pakistani ex-Muslim community, which is what you've just been talking about, really, and the Arab ex-Muslim community in the UK? Do you know anything about that?
I'd say that's an interesting question, to be honest, because we haven't really like made this ex-Muslim community within the UK kind of like binary or split it into these categories for the most part. So it is at the moment, because it is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, in terms of like the meetups and things like that, the work that we do, it is it's just a small niche community of ex-Muslims, whether they're, and I think quite a lot of them are from South Asia, and then obviously countries like Iran and stuff. I actually haven't met that many Arab ex-Muslims here, but I can say that the ones I have met are obviously, I think just by virtue of their actual background and maybe family back home and having to fly, directly into Arab states, they are slightly more, they would feel they have slightly, I think, more on the line than other ex-Muslims. And they just haven't come out in as large numbers for me to recognize an Arab ex-Muslim community. I know like the odd person here and there of Arabic background that's left Islam. But I don't think I could comment on the communities per se.
It's not so much a community, a bound together tribe, no. But to what extent is ex-Muslim people in the UK, do they join an ex-Muslim society? I mean, I know there are one or two ex-Muslim societies, but is this something that people gravitate towards when they leave Islam?
So you would think so, right? Because that's what I was absolutely chuffed to bits when I realized there was an actual Council of Ex-Muslims Britain that's here, that's local, that's giving me a safe space and a support system. It's representing us. It's being engaging. It's kind of at the forefront of working with, organizations like NSS, like you said earlier, the National Secular Society, Humanist UK, kind of they're all pooling together. They actually get involved in asylum cases and helping people who have fled for reasons of apostasy and potential blasphemy cases. So I was absolutely chuffed to bits, and I was so kind of eager to go to one of these events myself. But for the longest time, I didn't. I every time it was coming up, I kind of made an excuse up to myself, and I just didn't go, because it is quite daunting to, for the first time, leave your house and potentially. It feels like coming out in a way, you are genuinely coming out as this new person who's shedding a label, and
It is exactly coming out. Yes, I can't find it in the time available. Can you shut my door, please? Never have children.
Noted, John.
I've got four.
You told me just in time.
I don't
Oh,
take
bless.
I don't
They
take my.
seem lovely.
They are lovely.
That's because they want to hang out with their dad now. It's
Yes,
a Saturday
yes.
evening.
This is true. Yes, especially as I've been away all day, so they've missed me. But
Exactly.
what was I saying? Completely forgotten what I said. Oh yes, somewhere, I can't find it in time for the show, but I've got a lovely clip of the key person at the Council of Ex-Muslims. What's her name?
Mariam Namazi?
That one, Mariam. I've got a lovely clip of her dancing.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, because of course that's naughty.
That's naughty, exactly.
Yes,
What
so
isn't naughty?
yes, so she was proudly dancing on YouTube to show how she wanted to flout the rules.
Nice. Mariam is always kind of like just at the helm of representing us and pushing the boundaries, and she's doing all the right things. Yeah, really, really, really actually grateful to have her and such a strong community like within Britain, to be honest.
Yes, I'm sorry that I couldn't remember your name, Mariam. It's just that I'm so old. My memory's in here now.
If it's any consolation, I'm really bad at remembering names and faces as well, John.
Funny,
so it's not even an age thing.
Sometimes I remember the initial letter, but not the rest of. How odd is that?
At least you remember that. Sometimes it's just gone.
So the Afro-humanist, who is an old sparring companion of mine, and I haven't seen her since New Year's Eve, I don't think, but I'd like to get back in touch, Afro, if I may call you that. So please, maybe you'll put your email, because I lost your email when I moved. For those who don't know, I used to be the publications director of Atheist Alliance International, and I left that role after 4 very lovely years in January, and I've struck out anew, and I'm now the president of Atheism UK. But so I lost your contact details, and I would like, maybe you could put them in private chat for me, or get in touch with me somehow. So we've got more comments coming in. Afghanistan women, will women have a voice? Ooh, well, I keep reporting on the news from Afghanistan, where, in case you haven't seen my Global Atheist News show, it's a half-hour show that goes out on a Saturday night here in the UK at 8 p.m. And most of the reports for the last several weeks have been about the Taliban. It's been very Afghanistan-centered. And yes, we're waiting to see. At the moment, the women who work for the government have been told to stay at home unless they clean the female toilets, because men can't go and do that.
Bloody hell.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So what's this? Bandy Gami and his Kyrgyz girl, a Sunni who drank alcohol, and her mother was into shamanism. Yes. More important,
I think
it belongs to the nationhood than the religion.
I think that's definitely a pattern that I see amongst some of these countries, Azerbaijan as well, Kazakhstan. They put
stans.
The stans, except for Pakistan, unfortunately. But they put their nationality ahead first and foremost, and then being a Muslim second. And even when you do that anyway, it's already a filtered down kind of light version of Islam, because it's not at the forefront of your identity in the same way it is in countries like Pakistan, unfortunately, for the most part.
Except you have pockets, don't you? Because Afghanistan and Pakistan can be hosts to ISIS and all the various other branches of fundamentalist Islam.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What's this one? When a Muslim is offended, they wait and planning to take revenge in a sneaky and discreet manner, not confronting the author. Well, It takes all sorts. Most people don't even know how to read the Quran. Well, I think that's fairly ubiquitous, isn't it? I mean,
I
apart
would
from
say so.
the native Arabic speakers, who knows how to read the Quran? And you're taught to say it in a language that it's gobbledygook.
Exactly. It is, because I think that's one of the main reasons as well that people are so happy within the confines of Islam, not knowing what's actually written in the book, is because
Oh, yes.
there is that added barrier of language that really does become a deterrent for people to actually read it. And then even if they do try and read it in their own language, they're always fed that narrative that you'll never understand the true meaning and the true beauty and the
Yes.
true miracle
Yes.
that it is unless you understand the Arabic. But then you are naturally at a disadvantage that
Yes.
is in no way your fault or
Yes.
in your control.
Yes.
So I always did feel that as well. I always kind of, even as a Muslim, I had this feeling that, why has God chosen to focus on this specific
Yes.
version of Arabic? Why not in my language if it was this important? Why not
Well,
in the
yes.
language of the people who reside in the Amazon rainforest? How are they going to learn classical
Exactly.
Arabic and
Yes.
understand God's message?
Yes. You're damned not to go to heaven just because of how you're brought up speaking a different language. And you'd
Precisely.
think, wouldn't you, that somebody who can create a deity who can create a universe, it shouldn't be too difficult for them to translate and speak to us in a language that we can understand.
Not at all. Yeah.
So here's an interesting question. I was going to ask you this. Do you get shunned?
Yeah. So essentially, so I didn't even mean to kind of like come out to my family or rock the boat at home. Like when I found an outlet online, I thought it would be okay for me to kind of just go through this by myself. But clearly, when you are having these thoughts, there are some things that you want to voice and you can't hold back. So I think I tweeted something, and my dad saw it, and then he asked me if I was an ex-Muslim. And again, like, that's not even a label that I love to carry around. It's not one I use or identify with as much. Like, I just call myself a humanist now. But for the purposes of normalizing dissent, like, I was like, yeah, sure, I am, because it's normal now. There are people who leave Islam and we are ex-Muslims. We don't want to associate with it anymore. And it's a very real phenomenon. So I did use that label. And it was initially a big shock. And before I could even say the things I was saying, I have kind of cut off a lot of my family who I know are going to have a problem with it. So I make sure that they can't find me or follow me on social media, because quite a lot of them are very much still heavily into the religion, even the ones in my generation. So within my family as well, there's a huge mix of people being very conservative and into Islam, kind of dominating their daily lives, to those who are kind of in between and those who are a lot more liberal. So I had to make sure that I wouldn't get kind of, fall onto their radar to begin with. But yeah, even with my parents initially, because I would outright just not want to participate in things like the Eid, the sacrifice we make for Eid. So you normally do it like per family, per person. And that it's called in Urdu, it's called Qurbani in English. So you do it like according to how many members of the family you have. And when I did say that I like, please don't count me for the purposes of this, I don't want to be included, things like that do kind of just make, these little tensions, kind of spruce up in the house. Otherwise, I would say, because I feel like this is genuinely my truth and these are things that I feel like I need to talk about, they are extremely progressive and educated. So they kind of explore different ideas themselves. And that's why they push me to kind of just follow my own line of inquiry, follow that. And so my immediate family, I'd say, are very, very supportive, which I know is not what happens in most cases, which just propels me to speak even more, because who the hell has this amount of privilege to come from a position like this to, raise their voice?
It's very good. I'm so pleased that they're tolerant towards you, because it can be a lot worse than that. And it annoys me that we're expected to respect their sensitivities, and we have to sort of tiptoe around trying not to offend these snowflakes who are the ones that are wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this is probably why you call yourself a humanist rather than an atheist.
Yeah.
Because the word atheist has had a lot of bad press.
Yeah,
And
it has indeed.
although it's what we are born
True.
in, you know, a newborn baby can't speak. They have no language. So they can't choose a doctrine to follow, an ideology. They can't say, hello, I've just been born, I'm a Christian or anything. It's a ridiculous idea. You have to be taught a religion, and you're taught by your surroundings, by your circumstances, by the culture that you happen to have arrived in. But then, it seems to me, because they don't really have any strong substantiation, you're forbidden to criticize it. You're forbidden to leave, because that would undermine their contention that they've got a good belief system.
Yeah, exactly. That's precisely how it is. And because especially I think I don't know, I mean, it's because Islam is so totalitarian, but because it's so on a whole nother level, I would say, because Islam hasn't gone through a reformation, it is a massive thing to consider. Because in Islam, the biggest thing you can do, the biggest let's say crime against God, if you will, is shirk, which is associating another with God. But for me, I think as a previous Muslim, what is tantamount to that is saying there's absolutely no God whatsoever. Like, that also hits really, really below the belt. And I was actually afraid to make that point to my own family and say that this is my stance. So maybe it's just
humanist
maybe it's just to kind of keep away from the polarization, and like you said, the bad rep that atheism has got, and this kind of cult association that atheism can sometimes be lumped in with, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. But that's what happens, and that's what new age atheism also gets lumped in to be some like with cult-esque features, which it really isn't. But again, I feel like because this is only part and parcel of my journey, so I once had faith in God and I no longer have faith in God, I don't think there's enough evidence. And if there ever is to the contrary, if there's enough evidence in favor of God, sure, like I will believe it. But until then, I won't. But for me, what's more important than whether somebody has a belief or not in God is the general worldview that you espouse. And for that, I think humanism is more kind of focused on the human experience, while still pushing for rationale and scientific inquiry to be at the forefront as pillars of being a humanist. But again, it's saying that we don't need or believe in a God to be moral or to live good lives, but it's down to us, essentially. And I think that that's a more real way to approach it, just in my case. And also, like you said, sensitivity wise, I think maybe somebody would hear me out if I tell them I'm a humanist, as opposed to listen, I'm going to start on like the polar opposite of what you believe in.
The way atheism has been propagandized, it's supposed to be, in the minds of these people, it's supposed to be immoral, it's supposed to be purposeless, it's supposed to be God-hating. None of those things is true, but they regard it as a sort of poke in the eye. If you say you're an atheist, it's saying in their minds, I'm right and you're stupid. But that's not the case. The word atheist really just means that I'm not convinced by your claims, whatever particular claims they have.
Also, like even just that term, for some reason puts them on the defensive. So it really, really puts them on the kind of back foot, and then they're just there to defend their religion no matter what. So I don't think that if I was to, for example, constantly bang on about the fact that I'm atheist around Muslims, it would have any productive impact to the point where they're actually willing to hear me out. If I say I'm a humanist and what I'm saying to you is that human values are the most important thing to me, it's a bit more easier to hear me out than me saying, listen, your Allah that you think exists, mate, he's completely imaginary. Like, that's not really going to go down as well.
No, it's not going to open doors, is it? No. Mm. So what else do we have coming in here? Critical social justice is a dogma. Atheist movements are suffering because of these ideologies. Well, there's so much going on. The internet has opened a can of worms, hasn't it? And we've had the woke movements, we've had cancel culture, we've had, as this person here, Shinobi, ex-Muslim, thank you for watching. He says Richard Dawkins was Humanist of the Year and his award was revoked, which is
why?
Well, because he said something that the American Humanist Association disagreed with, and it's ridiculous. Right. It was an undeserved revocation. These awards shouldn't be revocable, in my view.
Touche, exactly.
Mm. You've earned them, so you should be allowed to keep them.
Yeah, it's almost feeding into that cancel culture now.
Yes. Well, I've got some questions for you here because I know you like cricket.
Yeah.
So when it comes to England versus Pakistan, who do you support?
Oh, this is straight to business. Oh my gosh, this is the litmus test, isn't it? I think again, I will put this down to it's all I knew since I was a child is that even as we're sitting in England, if it's England, Pakistan, you've got to support Pakistan. And it's just the way that I've seen my family react to it, and therefore I've done the same. And but then it's so weird because England versus anyone, I am like all England all the way. I just, for some reason, I have a soft spot for the West Indies. I feel like that team has a lot of swag. So even if they beat Pakistan, I'm like, you know what? That's fine. If they beat England, it's fine.
Well, they're not the team they used to be. The West Indies were fan-bloody-tastic. But
they were.
Not anymore. But I take my daughters to cricket matches, and the one we went to recently was a women's match. And it was England versus India. And we sat, because of course, it's not like football where you have to be corralled into areas of supporter of this team, separate from supporter of that team. In cricket, you all sit mixed up. And so we were sat with a load of Indians, and it was fantastic the way they were cheering on. They had these huge flags to wave, and the English supporters were going, oh, well done.
Believe me, the Indian crowds are usually so much more fun as well, because I actually went to the England-India series as well, but I sat in a crowd with a load of Indians, and they were having the time of their lives. And you just, I'm Pakistani, and I was still enjoying their reaction to what was happening, as opposed to like usually when you do go to Lords, especially. I mean, this has its own charm when you sit with English fans at Lords and there's a really, really intense test match going on, and you know, the culture is it's kind of silent. You concentrate, you clap for good shots. That's also like nice in a way. But when it does come down to like one days, T20s, and I feel like even women's cricket, it's a lot more fun to kind of be in the thick of it.
Well, where we went, they had loud music for wickets and flames for the sixes. It was fantastic.
Such a fun atmosphere. Yeah, even when I lived in Dubai, the Pakistan cricket team had to use Dubai as their host, like almost like their home venue for a number of years because the situation just wasn't safe for cricket back home. And the atmosphere was absolutely insane. Like the music would blast for every boundary, every six. The cheerleaders would come on, and it's like the sound system, which felt like, you know, you could be at a music festival or something.
Yes,
it's a really, really good vibe. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So it's a shame about Imran Khan, isn't it? Because he was a fantastic cricketer, and now he seems to be turning into a populist leader.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, it's a really, really sad state of affairs because I had faith in him as well from the beginning. I think he definitely had high hopes, thinking that he maybe he is the one now. He preaches for, you know, non-corruption and kind of cleaning up the entire government and all of that. And I think even the elder generation had a lot of faith in him because of the fact that he was a cricketer, he was well traveled, he had got an Oxford education,
Yes, yes, yes.
all of these factors, and like his general charm and his charisma,
Mm.
his looks for a lot of women, but all
Yes.
of these things kind of just fed into the support that he had. But lo and
Mm.
behold, when, as usual, when people are in power,
Yeah.
and you kind of see the U-turns they're making, and you see some of the statements that they're making, which are
Yes.
completely hypocritical in nature,
Yes.
you kind of start to, obviously, you can only lie to yourself for so long. I know there's people who
Mm.
really, really had hope in him, and they've seen him make a couple of quite big blunders recently, and they still hold on to the fact that he's controlled by somebody else, which is very much plausible in the
Yeah.
case of Pakistan.
Mm.
But it's sad that we thought this would be a momentous change for the country, and particularly amongst young people, and now we're kind of almost, for it seems, going backwards in many ways.
Yeah. There was great promise, and now there's great disappointment.
Precisely. Yeah.
So, have you been attacked online by the Hindutva?
I haven't actually. I think it's very, very early days for me.
Yes,
And
it is. Yes.
and to be honest, because I think my platform is a lot more dedicated to women and women centric, and I
Yes.
talk about things that I know personally. Like when I talk, I'll just talk about things that I know or have had experience with.
Yes.
So in
Yes.
terms of Hinduism, all I can give is my opinion about why I lump it in with other religions that are not to the benefit of humankind, and always to the detriment of women's liberties and
Yes.
women's position in society. But I haven't explicitly attacked Hinduism as a dogma or ideology, just because I don't feel qualified enough to attack it. Like, I know there's certain practices in it which definitely are degrading to women and which are clearly misogynistic in nature, and I can call them out, but I'm not in a place where I feel I'm qualified to talk about the ins and out of Hinduism. I will tell you categorically I don't believe in it, but I think because I haven't kind of like pushed those buttons yet, that they haven't really come after me. I'm still probably in their good books for a while. But then again, I do kind of do a lot of the like conversations I have with other people where they do, they include talking about what their views are against the Hindutva, and so they could easily lump me in with that for sure, and that's fine, because it will come out at some point.
The Hindus used to be quite a sort of low-key, tolerant sort of religion, but now with what's it, Narendra Modi,
yeah,
he's sort of empowered them, hasn't he? So they're now getting quite stroppy.
Yeah. Not different from a lot of these other far right movements. It's kind of scary. Yeah.
So you're right. You've only exploded onto the scene in the last few months, but people, that's her channel, Holy Humanist. So please go and visit her channel.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it.
Sign up and set the notifications and do all that sort of thing that I'd like you to do to my channel too. Please. Yes, just join in, and thank you very much for all the contributions we've enjoyed from our audience tonight. And yes, thank you, Afro Humanist, for subscribing. I don't know whether you meant to Holy Humanist or to my channel, which is FreeThought Hour or FreeThought Productions. That's what you're watching right now.
I hope it's for both, Afro Humanist, but thank you so much. And I saw the earlier compliment as well. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
We have a lovely audience, don't we? Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
So I'm going to keep it a secret as to who I have as my guest next week. I've got a number of possibilities, but I haven't managed to hook anyone yet, although I have for the following Saturday. What's that going to be? October the 9th or something. I'm losing track of the days here. Anyway, thank you very much, Nuria. You have been every bit as wonderful as I expected you to be.
No problem. Thank you so much, John, for having me on your channel. I really do appreciate it. And for your lovely audience. I'm just kind of seeing the comments. And Afro Humanist did say it was for both channels. So double whammy.
Great. Thank you, Afro. So And thank you everyone for watching, and all the future viewers too, because this will become a podcast shortly after I stop the broadcast. And that's what I'm going to do any minute now, just lining up Nuria's outro, because I've made her. You remember when you were at the cinema and at the end of the movie, the names went up. Cast list. I've done that for you.
Oh, cheers, John. Thank you so much. And thank you again for having me. And thank you to everybody for listening.
And when we stop, you and I will still be connected, but not live. So
Sure.
we can have a little chat if you've got time to do that.
Sure.
So here we go with the outro for Nuria.